Now, guys, I often hear this claim about Jews being kicked out of 109 countries and that being proof of them being guilty. All right. Now YouTube is probably gonna demonetize this video because whenever you speak about anything like this, whether you're like whichever side you're on, YouTube looks to censor free speech. But that wouldn't stop me from making this video, and this might offend some of my subscribers. I have 20 subscribers and it's not a lot, and I'm still risking like 5 of them, and including my channel mate, right? You'd be like, oh bro, the Jews paid you to make this video. Like, bro, I have 20 subscribers. It doesn't matter if I make this video or not. First of all, let me get this clear. I have my problems with Judaism, but on a more theological level, on a more philosophical level, as I do with every other religion. But I do not have problems with Jews as people. I'm not racist like that. I don't think that someone being persecuted is proof of their guilt. First of all, when people talk about, the Jews were kicked out of 109 countries, the first thing that has to be discussed is why is the number exactly that? It's because if you look at the history of those three Abrahamic religions, compared to Islam and Christianity, at least Christianity before colonization, Judaism was the most widespread religion among these three. And even though it did not have a huge number of followers in absolute terms, the global reach of Judaism was quite huge. There were Jews in North Africa, there were Jews in Spain, Sephardic Jews, there were Jews in Germany and Central Europe, the Ashkenazi Jews, there were Jews as far and as wide as Iran, like the Persian Jews, and there's also Khazar Jews, Turkic Jews. So when you hear that Jews were persecuted and pushed out of their countries, first of all, you have to notice that only happens when the Jewish people are under the overlordship of either Christians or Muslims. This doesn't really happen when you see other people like Hindus, when you see people like Zoroastrians. In fact, Cyrus, if you guys are history nerds, you probably know he was from the Achaemenid Empire. He was from the Achaemenid dynasty, the first giant Persian empire. He is actually a prophet in the Old Testament. So it's not always been like that. And the reason you get that figure of 109 countries is because over time, those other 109 countries would eventually be invaded by a power which was either Christian or Muslim, and then be converted by, I did not mean to play that. And then this state government was, this state religion was overturned, which was originally much more tolerant to Judaism. And then, let's say Iran was attacked and converted to Islam by the Arabs, right? And over time, while Zoroastrianism was much more tolerant to Judaism, Islam simply was not. Islam was not tolerant to Judaism. And that is why you see, especially in some Shia branches, and Sunni Islam was even then somewhat tolerant, though not greatly tolerant. It was horrible. Shia Islam was horrible towards Jews. And again, if you were to apply this logic, bro, persecution is proof of guilt, then why not apply the same logic to Christians in Levant and North Africa? Who ruled North Africa and the Levant before the Arab invasion? The Eastern Byzantine Empire. Why not apply the same logic to Christians in the Balkans who are converted, right? That persecution is the proof of guilt. The 60 or so countries where you talk about Jews being persecuted and pushed out from, in 60 of those countries, the same thing happened. The same thing happened to Christians. And Christians themselves were not like some, like you would say in Hindi, kura patta, or completely free of their own problems. Christians were, for a huge duration, their religion was considered barbaric, by the Romans. And when they eventually converted, they became a lot more intolerant to other religions. Like the Romans initially had very good religious ties with the Persians, but with the conversion of Romans to Christianity, their ties with the Persians soured up, seriously soured up. With some exceptions like Belisarius, and I think I'm talking about the wrong guy. And who was the guy who led the Eastern Roman? Who was the emperor who led the Eastern Roman reconquista of North Africa? Right, that guy. They had some. They had some attempts to re-establish those ties with the Huns, and they took part in some Kangarist rituals, but that is rare after the conversion of Rome to Christianity. So Rome became progressively more intolerant towards every other religion, not just Jews. So when you see over time Christians expulsion Jews out of Europe, you have to understand that the same thing happened to the pagans. The same thing happened to the pagan religions of Europe. Are you now going to say that the pagan religions of Europe were just like equally guilty? No, they probably were not. In fact, they were the only reason Europe ever came out of its dark ages, because the attempt was to restore Europe to its former glory. So that really lines up why it's 109 countries from where the Jews were kicked out of, because 50 odd countries were Christian countries and 60 odd countries were Muslim countries. But again, you have to understand that these religions did the same thing with each other. Now I'm going to ask the same thing. When the Christians took over Jerusalem, they killed every single Muslim in the walls of Jerusalem. Does this prove that the Muslims living in the walls of Jerusalem were guilty? Does the Reconquista and all of those horrible atrocities, not just murder or rape, like people were tortured for fun, does it prove that the Muslims were guilty of some conspiracy? Christians were kicked out of 60 countries. They were converted, forced to live under jizya. Same thing happened to Zoroastrians. Does this prove that they were guilty of some kind of conspiracy? If it doesn't prove it for them, why does it prove it for Jews? Because there's one Jewish ethnicity which has high IQ and is thus overrepresented in every single academic sphere, intellectual sphere, whether good or bad. That's just jealousy from your part. Like there's other Jewish ethnicities who actually do not show up anywhere. Like they are on the same level as black people, quite literally, in terms of academic achievements. Like if you talk about Persian Jews, if you talk about Sephardic Jews, like you don't talk about them, you only talk about Ashkenazi Jews. That is already explainable. That can be already explained because they have higher IQ than everyone else. It's not because they have a conspiracy against anyone. Now, if we are to talk about how the world is a genetic prison where the higher IQ, better looking, taller, and neurotypical have an advantage, yes, that is what the black pill is all about. That is what the black pill has always talked about. And again, that is not limited to the Jews. That is not limited to the Jews. The people who are exploiting you, they consist of the genetically advantaged of every single race, every single country, and every single culture. There's no difference between them. And the funny thing is, the people who are scapegoating the Jews, the leaders of those movements who scapegoat the Jews as a whole people, their leaders are capitalists as well. Like you hear the right wing talk about how the Jews are always taking over the jobs. Like, bruh, your right-wing leader is some billionaire who fucks Stacey's every night. There's nothing in common between you and them. And this is where Schopenhauer's, I hope I'm not butchering his name, but his wisdom transcends nations, right? This is where his observations come into play. National pride is the most ignorant form of pride that anyone can have. Racism is the most ignorant form of discrimination that anyone can have. Is my race is superior. No, your race is not superior, bitch. Your race is not. The elites of your race, like they are conspiring against you just as much as the elites among the Jews. They are the same people. They are the same group. There's no difference between them, and they are recruiting you so you can fight the war against the pawns of the other groups of elites. That's the difference. That's the only realistic difference. Is because you and the guy on the other side, they are equally stupid. They're equally ugly. They're equally low SMV. They're equally probably similarly neurodivergent and easy to fool because of your low IQ. That's the only difference, because you are just being recruited by two different recruiters. That's the only difference between you two. If you are a racist, if you are a colorist, or someone who believes in all of those conspiracy theories about Jews being the people conspiring, then that's the only difference between you and the people you consider your enemies. It is you have different recruiters. There's no difference in the purpose that the two of you serve. So this was the only video I was going to make about this, and I hope this clarifies everything. And this is just too stupid of a topic to talk about. There's much more interesting stuff to talk about, and this is just so annoying. I just had to make this video, so I'd see you guys in the next one.